11th family is now coming forward seeking to be part of a settlement involving allegations of abuse at an East Texas elementary school. 6 former educators at JL Everhart Elementary School in Longview were accused of abusing 10 children in their care. 10 families were awarded $2.5 million as a total settlement from the Longview ISD. KLTV's Jamie Boyum spoke with the Longview ISD superintendent and one of the lawyers involved in the case.
After coming out of closed session Monday night, the Longview ISD Board of Trustees voted to approve legal counsel to review potential claims from a JL Everhart student. Superintendent James Wilcox says the vote does not approve paying the settlement amount.
The attorney will negotiate with their attorney, and they'll come back and make a recommendation to me to present to the board. And then at that time, the attorney will come back and we'll have a final resolvement.
One of the attorneys representing the alleged abused students in the special needs class, Jeff Hoover, with Sorey and Hoover trial lawyers, says the 11th child was the last child in that class. He says the family was not aware of the lawsuit until they saw it reported by the media, and they are now requesting a settlement.
It's going to be the same as with the other kiddos in the class, so the $250,000.
He says the other 10 families received $250,000 each in the LISD settlement, and now there's another
pre-suit offer to settle, which if they take, then there's no need for us to file a lawsuit. And then obviously if they don't take it, then we proceed with the lawsuit.
And there was no lawsuit filed against Longview ISD for the other 10 children since they settled.
Fortunately, LISD, at least for the kiddos in that class that year, has decided to do the right thing and not drag these kids and these families through a lawsuit.
Hoover says several instances of alleged abuse were recorded on security camera.
There's video of the teachers and the administrators assaulting that classroom.
6 former educators were arrested in July of 2022 and charged with multiple counts of endangering or injuring a child. Attorney Jeff Hoover and the other defense attorney in the case, Shane McGuire, say the money awarded to the other 10 families will be put into trusts so the money can be used for the children's benefit. Jamie Boyum, KLTV 7 News.
As for the educators who were dismissed and charged, Priscilla Johnson is in court October 20th. Linda Lister, Cassandra James, Cecilia Gregg, Paula Dixon, and Cynthia Talley are scheduled for court August 30th.